the wall for a chance to be with you. I gladly risk it all. Oh, through the fire, through whatever comes. Oh God, here we go. Right now, for a chance to love you, I'm taking all away. Right down to the one. Even through the okay. Help me with these words. I looked in your eyes and I could see. What's that? Love so dangerously. You're not trusting your heart to anyone. You told me you're gonna buy a smile. And before we start, I believe that we've only just begun. When is this good? There's no saying no. I need you so I'm ready to go. Help me out. Through the fire, to the limit, to the wall. For a chance to be with you, I gladly risk it all. Through the fire, to whatever comes. For a chance to love you, I'm taking all away. Right down to the one. Even through the
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to another experience of the African Speaks through the fire. Man, every time I hear that song, I think of it and look at it differently now. The way I see this song now is not a sister singing to a brother, but a sister looking in her own eyes, singing to herself. Think about that. Being able to experience your higher self and going into a deep meditation and experiencing your higher self and making the decision that you're going to go through whatever you got to go through to experience the love, self-love that you will have when you access that being and you can live as that being. Going through the fire to the limit, to the wall for a chance to be with you. I gladly risk it all. What? Can you imagine what type of sister sings that song to herself and falls in love with the greatness of who she is? If you can imagine that, then you can also understand this rise of the African, our social Pan-African movement where we are connecting Black people all over the diaspora under one umbrella to make this movement to a higher level of consciousness so that we can obtain a higher state of living. Let's go through the fire together. Ain't that something? Now, we have been talking about the sisters for a minute. And this is hopefully I got one more show because I have a sister coming on who's going to speak next week, right? So I got another guest coming. But we've been talking about the Black woman's medicine from trauma to triumph, the journey to the divine feminine. Today's topic is the art of selfless self-care. And I had to put the word selfless self-care because there is a such thing as selfish self-care. Oh, self-care is not selfish. It depends on the mind state in which you are enjoying it. It completely depends on the mind state in which you are enjoying it. And in the process of being or moving toward the divine the divine feminine, and I can add the new phrase, the divine African. Ain't that something? That came off the tongue like it was supposed to be natural. But being where the sisters are focusing on this journey of going towards experiencing the divine feminine, that the art of selfless self-care manifests in the journey of once their awareness is open. And we're going to talk more about that. But I don't want to jump into that because I know some sisters this has been a minute and we've been talking about this for a minute. So I want to give a recap because when we start talking about what happens after the transition of the womb healing, we want to talk about that. We're going to talk about the powers and the divisions and everything else. We want to get to that. That's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. But before we get to the art of selfless self-care, let's go back. Now, this conversation was being discussed in regards to uh, celebrating Black women, and I was sitting there thinking about how can I celebrate Black women? How can I focus on her being the medicine to the community that she is, that she always has, even in her unconsciousness? The Black woman has been the Black community's medicine. What? It may not have been, it was the medicine we needed at the time, and now we might need more medicine. So she becomes even more. So I said, let me dive into this. And as I started dipping into the concept of experiencing the Black woman's medicine, I came across the concept of how these sisters are going through this journey of the divine feminine. And we had an intro of the divine feminine and discussed the issues of the divine feminine or the reasons why women made this journey toward the divine feminine. And in that, we said, the intro, we said once they make this journey and they have these experiences, characteristics are developed where their intuitive thought process shoots up. Their collaboration with sisters shoots up. The ability to nurture increases. Their emotional intelligence, we're going to talk about that today, increases. Their creativity, their sensuality develops even more. They become even more feminine. We'll talk about that next week because some people take it wrong and become overly feminized, and they got to watch that, but we'll talk about that next week. They become deeply and more compassionate, gentle, flowing with life. They're present, conscious, they're in the moment, they're in their sasa. They're no longer plagued by the issues of the zamani, and the zamani is your past. They live in the present. They're the sasa, the now. And they affect their future because they stay strongly in the present. And then they become deeply receptive, meaning that they feel everything. What? It's just how she's built. It's just how she's built. And this was in the intro and the overview of the intro of what a Black woman manifests into and the things that give her the characteristics of being in the divine feminine. But then we went deeper in and said, how is this process started? And so that's when I started diving in, and we came across and we shared here from the African Speaks the concept of womb healing. womb healing. So in this space, when she realizes I need help, she deals with the issue of her womb healing. And this was in this conversation, we stated that she has three wombs: her mind, her heart, and her reproductive system. We also stated that it's how do you know that you have womb trauma to need womb healing? They have a lot of medical issues, a lot of medical issues that stem within that womb area. And so European society's decision to rid it was just, let's just cut it out. They only want to cut it out because they're still trying to study your womb. They're studying your genes, your genetics, everything about being a black woman. That's why it's so quick to think, let's get rid of it. Why? Because they can study it, and they can find the DNA benefits of who and whose you are. That's what they're trying to do. But we said in that womb, and we also said that they were not in captivity of 400 years of captivity. We said that they didn't care about enslaving the generations that they captured. They didn't care about them at all. They never, oh, we need the black man's muscle. Oh, we need the black. No, they didn't care about the black woman that was on that boat. What they wanted to enslave was her womb. They need to enslave the black woman's mind. They need to enslave her heart. And then they needed to enslave her reproductive system. Because there was no economic foundation just enslaving the person on the boat. Your ancestor who was captured. It was no economic plus for that. You couldn't have built this nation the way they built this nation with just the few generations that they had. No, we want your womb. And that's why they had those breeding camps. Because once we got your mind, once we got your heart, and we're claiming your womb, what you produce will be a slave perpetuity for 1,000 years. We want you to produce slaves that'll come out and conform to this society for 1,000 years. They wanted your womb. And so in the process of womb healing, we said a woman seeks to rid herself from that womb trauma. And so it is not, and a lot of sisters that I've spoken to only talk about their current trauma and their current generations. What daddy did, what uncle did, what them cousins did, what them boys down the street did, or sometimes what you do to yourself and how you treat yourself in sexual environments. And sometimes it ain't even sex, it's how you allowed yourself to be treated. How you allow somebody to yell at you, yank on you. Why? And that causes trauma. You have that physical scar tissue, emotional scar tissue, mental scar tissue, and scar tissue. And then that trauma is embedded in your DNA. Yes. It's transgenerational. And so womb healing begins to attack the generations. You begin to heal, where you pass it down. Trauma's passed down. And then we said, what is the depth of trauma? Because it's not just your generational trauma, it's the issue of slavery. You still function from the mark of slavery, post-traumatic slave disorder. Look this stuff up. I give you enough in the African Speaks. We make sure that we put together enough information to share with you that you could look it up for yourself. People, a lot of my friends who always like to deny the gift that God has blessed me with, I always say, look, if you don't want to take my word for it just because of however you view me, go look up what I'm saying. Because this is not just coming out of osmosis. Some of it is coming from the ancestors, and they say, go study this. It's exactly what happens. Go study this information. And then I go study it, and it's exactly what they said it was going to be. So look it up. Post-traumatic, and that's Joy DeGrow, PhD, sister, gave 10, 15 years of researching of the trauma that we carry. So we are born in an experience where we're going to have post-traumatic slave disorder in our genes, epigenetics. We're gonna come out with PTSD. It just happens, and we discussed that was what when you're dealing in real womb healing, that's how far back you're going. You're going back far enough to really experience change in your mind, in your heart, and in your reproductive systems according to what's in your family, what's in your bloodline. You can go back because your DNA holds 20 generations of trauma. Epigenetics. Y'all look that up. I'm not making this up. And then we also talked about the gift of the spiritual ear. This is one of the effects that happen when you start dealing with womb healing. And we said this process of going inward, because only you can do it. No one can go inward on your behalf to reach the issues that you carry. But you go inward to remove those walls. You change. You put the work in to really focus on the things that keep you from experiencing God in your life. And that's all around you, not just with this within first. You're looking for the kingdom of God within. Mm. And you start removing walls, removing barriers, removing blocks. And then with testimony, we'll talk about the sisters that came through. Testimony of just tears rolling down, prayers over you, herbs going in you, everything. You're just healing from the inside out. And then it's deep, deep healing. We stated that if you're going through womb trauma or womb healing and you have not reached a point where you can feel the pain of the mothers who stayed in Africa and couldn't find their children the next morning. Woo! Crying and running around and figuring out what hurt did they go through when they went looking and the sun is going down and it's time to eat. The community is coming together and a lot of people missing. If you haven't felt that pain yet, you still got work to do. But you're removing yourself, removing everything. And we said that as the black woman begins to move those walls, sister, as you begin to let them things go, you walk into that realm of quantum consciousness where you begin to experience not just the relationship you have with you, but your relationship that you have with all things. This is what womb healing leads you to, with all things. And they said, well, where do you start? First, you got to be aware that there's an issue. There are blocks, and you have the ability to heal yourself. And that begins it. How do I begin? And then when you start doing that, trust me, things will be pulled towards you. You'll start reading, studying, and researching. I know in African spirituality, there are certain spiritual baths that we can take that helps us shed the blocks that we have. And this is what men do because, I'm trying to heal my heart and my mind because I don't have a reproduction system that I can produce or create out of. I create out of my head and I create out of my heart. But in that space, I still connect to the greater manifestation of what God created, the one consciousness. But when a black woman does it, when a black woman connects to the quantum consciousness, the entire universe, realizing that there's a grid of energy and we are an expression of one divine consciousness. And everything she sees is an expression of that one divine consciousness. We said it's like the organic womb of creation going into the cosmic womb of creation. And then the abilities that she walks in is amplified. And that's where she gets the spiritual ear from. It's like innate sonar. Innate sonar, the ability to feel what's around you. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to do this and I bump into that. I'm going to walk around the corner and something's telling me I need to call this person to see how they're doing. Why? Because I'm feeling them in the universe. Mama jumps up. Oh, shoot, let me call, her son. Why? Because something's wrong. She becomes sonaric. That's my new word. The ability to feel. And then that's where she increases on her source or her ability to discern, a level of discernment. You can't really, I read the word. You can't read the word without, if that word ain't connecting you to a quantum consciousness, you have not completed the journey. You're at one with all things. And when you're at one with all things, you will, that's where the characteristics, you begin to feel even more. You get that emotional connection, you get the creative connection, you get the sensual connection, the compassionate, you're more gentle, and then you begin to hear. Let's get that epigenetic field through the that the quantum consciousness gives you going through womb healing. It unlocks data in your DNA. Now you can hear the information, or it's just you think it's your imagination goes wild. Let's go. Your creativity blossoms. You are able to come up and birth real concepts and ideas that liberate not just you, but everybody that's around you. You'll be able to plant seeds and have, if you need to, knowing that somebody's going to come back and fertile that. I'm just here to plant it. You begin to hear your ancestors. We've been talking about ancestral downloads. That might be a whole, and I was trying to do that with my sister Tanae, but she passed away. And I might go back and engage that, but that was a conversation I would have loved to have with her online. So I got to find somebody who really believes in ancestral downloads, and not only just believe them, hear them, respond to them. Believe them, then you hear them, respond to them. Black sister, she gets those ancestral downloads and she moves on them instantly. It's not a delay. I have to do this. Why? Because I'm called. That's powerful. And we went from that understanding to speaking to the ladies of Sadu, spiritual empowerment of the divine you. Zen for your soul. We had the sisters come up and talk about how the process of spiritual healing, the womb healing, affected them. And we had the sister who has the company. Come on, I'm gonna drop that right there for you. She was on our show. She watches all the time. I think boom, there you go. And I was deeply appreciative when she told me, hey, I shared it with my group. And of course, I believe that sisters don't believe that a brother can actually connect to the journey. That's what I feel. And then until you hear me have a conversation and we have a deep conversation and you realize that no, he tapped into his X chromosome. And y'all know my Y chromosome is super capitalized. And so I'm tapping into the X to get my Y to adhere that why I'm supposed to be protecting your double X. You feel me? And so in that space, they talked about the connection they developed, uh, the experience they had, the changes, the medical changes they had. They talked about the emotional changes they had, the spiritual changes they had. And the sister added that she knew she was called to do this work. That's when you get those downloads because she had to heal herself first. And in the process of healing herself, she realized that this is something I need to share with all my sisters. And she did that. Now, I'm hoping that y'all were able to get all of those. If not, you can go to the YouTube page and check it out. And I always ask you, because we're about to go into this new phase. If you're watching on Facebook, please like, please comment, please share. I've had a lot of people like, comment, and share the first episodes, and I truly appreciate it. Let's continue this. Let us make sure that the sisters that are coming up are understanding this journey. And there was a brother who put this together for sisters to communicate. Now I'm always looking for ever looking for sisters, and I offered to them, looking for sisters. Hey, if y'all need a show, let me know. I have no issue with production, and I don't have to be seen or heard. Why? Because this journey is ours. It's not just yours. And so, and also, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. So every time we go live, whatever programming we have, you can see it. So now tonight, of course, the issue is the art of selfless self-care. The art of selfless self-care, and which is important. What happens when the womb healing begins to take effect? It's so much more than just that listening ear, the spirit, the gift of the spiritual ear. So much more comes into play in this process. So you're in that experience where you are healing the child within, the little girl in you. You've healed, you're reaching out to the little girl in you, and sometimes the little girl, you open yourself back up when whatever trauma hits you that is in your personal, your current generation. You shedding tears. You shedding the onion, you experience the onion that's you. You wipe off that layer of onion and you bawling. But then you also you look at your mom's life and you shedding tears that she may not have been able to experience the fullness of who she is, and she did the best she could with you. But you also hurt and feel for her. You shed that. And then you go down the generations where you reach to your grandmama, where grandma just took what she ever could take, because that's what grandmas do. And you shed those tears. You shed that trauma. And you go back as far reaching. And we said once you start going back into you, Black woman, the essence of who you are, and beyond your current 3-4 generations, and you move back into that space where you understand that you're not just a Black woman, you are a manifestation of divine energy that has a culture that was, you're in the avatar, which is your body. You have your culture, you have your, I'm trying to fix this stuff right here. I'm sorry. You have your heritage. You have the experience. You even get a chance. You listen to African music. You get the vibrations back. You even take time to hear the language you used to speak. Some of us go through processes and rites of passages where you receive African names. Some Black women go as far as becoming a priestess. They do the work and come in contact with the spirit of the Black woman that first walked this planet, where she understood who she was in God, or who she is, because there's no time in the spiritual realm. And so now you embody that spirit of being that African woman. And so they stated that when you develop the awareness, new awarenesses of your reality, let's get this. When you get new awarenesses of your reality and you functioning from a higher frequency, that awareness sparks new synapses in your brain. And so we talking about you being able to heal yourself, right? Black woman is medicine. She needed medicine, she received medicine, and now wait a minute. The awareness of who she is and who she's been since the beginning of time, the mother of humanity, someone who is directly connected to the creator, with a deep culture and heritage, spiritual awareness and knowledge and connection. That awareness moves you past the lowest chakras and bumps up because now you've worked on your heart. So now you're going past those root chakras that are based only in survival. And you break through to those root chakras where you start hitting the heart and you love different. You interact different. That particular experience of awareness gives you they said it elevates your brain activity. And in the elevation of your brain activity, chemical is a chemical that is released in your body. And that chemical begins to help you change everything. At that moment, and I looked this up when I was reading that, I said, that sounds like alchemy. Where that spark, that awareness, that spiritual vibration creates that release where your brain becomes more active and it illuminates when they put the little things on them. Man, look it up. You become a biological alchemist. You like what? Exactly. There are chemicals that released into you from your neurons, and you're firing, your brain is active, and now that chemical is going to be going down the spine. Right. I got here where they talked about the 4 levels of the brain. This thing's got so deep for me. It was ridiculous. But you are able to self heal. Some sisters say from the experience of healing the womb triggered something. What? You became aware of your environment. And now that chemical, that reality of your environment, that I can rise above this trauma to be what God called me, you became the bioalchemist. And your perception changed everything. In that perception, you no longer was restricted by the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual blocks. You took the walls down. You took the walls down and it triggered the chemical reaction in your thought process. And you begin to heal yourself. Let's get it. The sister said, one of the things she teaches in the process of womb healing is the fact that, sister, I'm not healing you. I'm just giving you the opportunity or the tools you need to help physically get these herbs and these prayers. And I'm sharing this with you. We're doing this together, but what's going to happen is, and she may not know it. I'm going to ask about this later because she may not know what she's triggering, how she is creating bio alchemists in black women where God did a beautiful thing in us. God did a beautiful thing. The minute you reach higher frequencies of understanding and consciousness, your body begins to heal itself. Period. And that's why it's important when we say it, just as much as we say, know thyself, you have to know thyself to heal thyself. And at that moment where your perception is open, you have a complete opportunity for change. Yeah. That womb healing sparks deeper sense of consciousness that gives you an experience or an opportunity for change. And I say opportunity because God does not ever steal away your free will. When you come across, I literally had a friend who came across a higher thinking and she said, I don't want that. I said, what? I don't want that. That's literally too much. When they say ignorance is bliss, that's crazy. Ignorance is crazy. That's not bliss. Bliss is having that opportunity and taking the opportunity to heal thyself. I literally had to walk away from that individual because, and then the African was born right after that. Because I was like, oh, there's no way I can live with the understanding that somebody willingly wants to live stupid. That hurt. So you get the opportunity for change. And then now that post-traumatic slave disorder, that PTSD changes to something different. You're like, what? Yeah, to a medical term called PTG, post-traumatic growth, where what hurts you pushes you to make sure that it never happens to you or anybody around you again. Start thinking with a whole different process and how you're going to approach it. We're going to end this right now. I'm going to succeed despite the scars. Because some scar tissue in the womb, they can go down there and see it. And I have a friend who had the experience, and anytime she goes to get checked out, the doctor freezes because it is deeply scarred. And she says, I know, I know, I know. And she has moved from that. So she said it doesn't trigger anything anymore. Post traumatic growth, where you get the spiritual development and changes, you get the personal strength. All this is a result from womb healing. Let's get this. No, we don't want it there. Yeah, that's where we want it. So you can always see what we talk about. All of this comes when a black woman seeks to not just receive medicine, but to become medicine. Ain't that something? And that's what she's been for our community, whether she was conscious or not. Now she's making a conscious move where she relates to others different. But there's a different sister walking the planet now. Because when you start thinking about what sisters have gone through and you start speaking to these open and these conscious sisters, these spiritual sisters, you realize that they're not the same but they used to be. And some of them get to the point where, yeah, and one of my mothers, she said, and this Mother Evelyn, she called it stinking thinking. Some of these sisters think that they're working in power, but they're not. They're living in poverty. Poverty of spiritual wealth, spiritual poverty, mental poverty, emotional poverty. Anytime you got to exploit yourself to the fullest, to eat, live lavishly. So when I say that, yeah, there is some selfishness in some people's self care, but then you get that selflessness where it is a spirit. It's a journey to understanding that your appreciation for life increases, and then you realize you have new possibilities. These things are triggered after the experience or during or the first series of womb healing. These things are triggered, and when you have these things triggered, there is a sweeping and for some, and then you can sit down and brothers, if y'all looking for these sisters, who are empowered, there are ways you can tell, and I'm about to break that down. Who's who and who's not, because you have a lot of this. And I meet and I talk to sisters in regards to who and whose they are, and I have a couple of friends who are so spiritually endowed in their own heads, in their own minds. But when you look at them, you can tell this is not what you emanate, because I ain't getting it from you. I can see it now. Why? Because that post-traumatic growth, there are things that change. Because when that happens, a woman walks deeper into her I am experience. She walks into a God self. Womb healing of the mind, womb healing of the heart, womb healing of the reproductive system, womb healing of the little girl in you and in the generations before you, gets you to be able to walk into that God zone where your I am becomes exponentially powerful. and it pours out of you, I am. And you realize that you're not the victim anymore. You become the observer of your own thoughts. I am not my thoughts. I am the observer of my thoughts. I look at what I'm thinking and analyze, is this something, and because this is your triggers. Before you're triggered, before anything happens, you said, am I doing this from a scar, from self-righteousness, from my ego? Why am I thinking these things? And how does it affect me? A lot of times I'm talking to people, they say, brother, I'm still processing. Wow. And that is a sacred experience when you're processing your thoughts on a particular conversation and a concept. Why? Because you're in your greater I am experience. And you're an observer of your thoughts. Your thoughts are not you. You observe them, you learn from them, you process them, and you send whatever you get back to the divine consciousness. Ain't that something? So when you're sitting down and you're doing work, you're doing this and I had another sister whose husband was he might be in lockdown for life, and he was doing some rituals. He was doing rituals to he became Yoruba, and they gave him some rituals, and she paid a Babalawo, 3 grand to do the work for her in order to help influence the people who are watching over his parole to see if he can get out early. And things weren't changing. And she called the Babalawo, and he said, "You're not doing the work. You're not doing the work." And then that work is the generational work where you walk into your I am, connecting to the women in you that existed before trauma. Mm, how powerful is that, sister walking? That's God on earth right there. So sisters who say, I'm processing, I'm allowing myself to examine the situation, the information, and circumstance and processing. You're in your greater I am. And when you're in that moment, everything changes. This is how you can check and see the depth of healing in an individual. When everything changes. And I sat down and I said, oh, if I put several thoughts on one slide, so I'm not, we're not, because of the B, we'd have like 6, 8 more slides, but we don't. We only got 3. Your thinking changes. In that thinking, you think from not your ego or your scars, your hurt, or your pain. You try to see through the divine eye. How does this work spiritually? Breaking things, and not your conditioned self, not from what the world created you, but from who you know who you are in God. And sometimes, that changes, because you'll get to certain levels, and the creator will give you certain situations and circumstances where he'll allow you to level down. Like, what? Level down? I'm trying to level up. I ain't never trying to level up. I'm leveling down in the depth of my thinking and in my understanding. And in Eurocentric society, people level up. And African spirituality, woo, we level down. We go in the depth. It is the depth of your thinking and your connection and your experience in life. Your thinking changes. You don't think from your ego. You try to say, okay, ancestors and creator, give me an understanding beyond what I know. Lead me to the places that I can become greater. It completely changes. And then your emotional intelligence grows. And you know how people say, oh, sisters, she always gonna be over emotional. No, that's because the triggers and the trauma makes her over emotional. So she develops a level of emotional intelligence. That's how you can get to the flow of life, the calm. And not saying that it's always there. You can get to a deeper sense of compassion. You become more gentle. It's a different thing. You become a literally a more powerful and intuitive being. And not only you're intuitive to yourself, but you're become intuitive to the feelings of others. When you got sisters who say I don't work well with sisters, they got some serious womb trauma. Because this is a woman, I don't have good connections to other individuals who are made as organic wombs that produced humanity. We don't work well together. How you not? Your trauma keeps you apart. Mm. And so you have a little bit more emotional intelligence and you're able to work well. You don't overexert, you don't cry too much, you don't yell too much. Everything is in moderation. Emotional intelligence. We could do a whole series just off of it, and that's why I said we had to process, because this one would be an extra long one. And we may talk about some of these things. Yeah, we will talk about these things next week when we have our guest on. But emotional intelligence is deeply important. Then what changes is your language. Now, language is expressed in so many different ways. Language is not only what you speak, what comes out your thoughts. Your thinking changes. So if your thinking changes, what comes out your mouth should change. What goes inside changes. You limit certain inputs because it will alter your chemical balance. It could throw off your frequency. It could cut off the synapses of your brain's firing. Somebody told me, and I've been experiencing it myself. They said, man, you want to watch the Holy Spirit leave from you quick? Do something that is not of God. So that's why the language has to change. You can't always be in the same environment. And again, everything is in moderation. Everything is in moderation. Y'all see it? We're talking about the art of selfless self-care. She begins to think different. That's caring about how you feel. She begins to feel more profound and different. A little bit more, your heart becomes fearless because the discernment, that sonar kicks in. You're able to hear ancestors even more. And then you're able to respond the way you should. Some says, I need a minute. If your brothers, if your girl talking to you and y'all going back and forth and she's about to blow and let me process this. I need a minute. That's emotional control and intelligence. Let her process. Let her develop. Let her grow. Then, like again, your language changes. You have a language of self-awareness. You have a language of liberation, self-determination. You think differently. You are now, when you speak, you're not only speaking, you realize that you are a manifestation or an expression of your ancestors. Mm. That's a whole different, just a whole different way of conversation. The way you dress changes. What? Yes. The way you dress changes. That's language. That's talking, communicating. That's giving and receiving. So many levels of conversation. And that leads to self-perception. Because sisters are now walking around calling themselves queens. But none of them, a lot of them, you can't even see. They won't even embrace the African side of who they are. Only on holidays and special situations. I went to a church and everybody one Sunday visiting, right? Just becoming a part of greater communities and connecting with people. And that's a part of that male journey. We're going to connect to other male leaders. And before Black History, you won't see a brother in there with African gear on. Won't see it at all. But during Black History Month, man, the pastor come running out. He got everybody got dashiki on. But then as soon as History Month is over, you ain't putting nothing else on. And sisters are like that too. You want to see a sister who is aware of who she is, it has to be a part of what she tells somebody else. It's a part of who she is. Why? Because this is the culture, this is the heritage, this is the experience of who I am. Some people do it for a fad, but we said, okay, let that fad continue because maybe it might rub something off. Something might rub off. That you walk in your queenhood. Why? Because you're going back to those moments and times where Black women walked the earth without a scar. And so you want to make sure that you're connecting to your ancestors to the best of your ability. I had a brother tell me, you know, he's super Afrocentric and the head pastor's not. And then when he preached a sermon and came down on the black man being aware of the culture that God gave and the position in which he stands in and what he is supposed to be fighting for the same way every other culture is fighting for. He said his presiding bishop started wearing more African clothes, which is funny because you look. Other than that, sometimes you look like them. We have to be able to look at each other and heal. If we when the black woman becomes a healer, she doesn't just heal from doing something. You can heal. You get healed by looking at her. And if you don't believe me, look at the reaction of that we have now to the African fashion genre. The black women in Black Panther. Look at high couture fashion. The beauty of the sister is rising to where it needs to be. That natural beauty. That's why all the pictures I had natural sisters, blacks, dark skinned sisters in Afrocentric gear, because you can't say you're moving toward the divine feminine and not embracing the culture that God gave. If you're still embracing European standards, there's a problem. You haven't gone deep enough. The depth of your spiritual awareness of your identity is still lacking. That don't mean you do it all the time. But I definitely don't mean, it only happens during holidays, which is, once a month. There's an experience you walk in to work, it'd be a bracelet, earrings, you know what I'm saying? Something that when another sister who is not on the path of divine, experiencing the divine feminine looks, you trigger something. Why? Because you are the healer now. Mm, you are the healer now, not of just yourself. Because in that space, we gonna get to that. I'm about to rush. But you also see yourself where your body is a temple and you honor it always. What? There's no way you can disrespect who you are, or your friends can't get you to disrespect who you are. It's how you carry yourself. Women's are saying that level of self-exploitation is freedom. No, it's slave mindset. Period. Anytime you got to use your body to eat, you know what you are, and that's whether you laying on your back doing it or you dancing in front of a camera doing it. You know what you are, you know what you're doing, except for exploitation. How much is the body a temple? If you reclaimed the womb of your mind, the womb of your heart, and your reproductive system, everything changes. Everything changes. Ain't that something? Then also your diet. You ain't sitting there eating the way what they call a slave diet. You still eating slave food. Well, why? Because you understand that once that when y'all read up on that high frequency triggering a chemical reaction, because what you'll get is the understanding that the body begins to self heal. When the body self heals from a higher frequency, you understand that there's certain foods that trigger higher frequency in terms of the process of your energy. So you can't eat everything the way you used to. So things change. And I put How to Eat to Live because I gotta see if I found another book. But he put a good book together. The brother put a good book together. How to Eat to Live. Good book together. And that's what it is. We're not no longer, because down this road, black woman, you're no longer surviving. That's not what you're trying to do. I'm not trying to survive anymore. I'm living in an experience where God has given me the opportunity to see who I am on this planet. And so she even eats differently. And then if she had ailments before this situation and now she has ailments, right? So that it might be something, in your reproductive system. It could be high blood pressure. It could be diabetes. It could be a several things. You change how you eat according to what needs to heal your body. Why? Because you honor your temple. And the perception of you. I am the experience of a divine feminine being on earth, placed here to give this earth humanity. Humanity comes from the womb, and life that is developed around me is manifested from the womb of my thinking. Love, black love, manifests from a black woman's heart, her ability to extend how she cares. And she produces beings for the creator to exist in. And she guides that womb. She creates a womb. This is where they say a woman, you could buy a house, but a woman makes it a home because she creates that womb like experience where you are nourished, mind, body, and spirit to be able to experience the creator, which is the spiritual womb that manifests her as the organic womb spirit. She how to eat to live. She cooks with the intent to give life. Ain't that something? I have someone who has and I've been meeting a lot of people, but I have someone who had lupus. We ain't gonna say no names, make it personal. But she called me during a seemingly lupus. Well, it wasn't seemingly; it was a lupus episode. She had no legs; she couldn't walk, and she started to eat healthy. I said, "You can't eat healthy no more." Excuse me, brother. It's not about eating healthy. It's about eating foods that address inflammation and eating at particular times so that the body can develop a system of digestion to get those areas that food. It's time to care for the temple. And something that could have went weeks only lasted days. How to eat to live. The beautiful thing about it was when she called to ask for my suggestions, she listened. She processed, listened, and acted. And we said that is the thing when you start hearing your ancestors. You ask, you listen, you do. And in that space of this divine feminine, what happens to the sister, she walks into that experience where she understands that she is an African woman. People, sisters have a problem with being called African. I ain't no African woman. You have an issue with embracing the culture. No, you know who God called you to be. You're an African woman in the American in the diaspora that is in America. She understands the African diaspora, and she understands that she's a diasporic African woman. This is why these sisters, when these sisters go back to Africa, those women who still have that trauma start crying when they see her. That's my baby that I lost. Welcome home, they say. And so in that space of finding the divine feminine, she walks around, and when people see her, she looks at them with just who she is to say, welcome home. This is what that womb healing does for you. This is what the complete version of embracing African spirituality, embracing the journey of healing, embracing the power of who you are, yeah, with your traditions and your culture. The woman begins to see her journey as not just hers. The African woman begins to see it that this is a battle for all black women. And this is where you get that understanding of black girl magic. Not the surface stuff of just because you succeed, you black girl magic. No, I'm a manifestation of divine thought. And I'm here to do on this world. I got medicine to heal this world. And I tap into what's within so that I can do what's in this world. I am the African woman. I am an expression of the divine feminine. And in that space, when she's taking care of her skin, she's taking care of her hair, her teeth, her nails, her clothes, her children. It's not an effort for selfish care where I need to look out for me. That is not somebody who is inclined to experience the divine feminine. She does it because she knows that her identity is linked to every black woman who will see her. Her self-care becomes selfless. The attention that she takes on presenting herself as her best, because she knows that she is a window, she is a reflection, she's a mirror of someone seeing themselves in her. And she heals by that experience. Everything she does becomes selfless. Sisters don't get that. I had one conversation with a sister. We had the black woman had generations and generations that had to be sacrificial to get us here, because now we have access to more information than ever. And then how are we using it? We're destroying it. We're wasting it. But she exists in that concept of unification, that concept of communalism, the concept that I am because we are, and we are because of the great I am. I added that. That was a download for me. It's not I am because we are, and we are because I am. No, we are because of the great I am. Where my I, the word I is is plural, because I say I am, meaning me and every black man. Because I am him and he is me. My I is plural. The black woman who walks in selfless care understands that I am you and you are me. Her I is plural. So when you see me walking in my divine, this is the extension of you walking in your divine. Whether or not you understand it or not, because there ain't nobody hating. Y'all are going to movies watching these sisters kill it. And they're giving you great images of the beauty that God gave. Completely natural. Now, whether you embrace it as a fad or not, you're getting the reflections of the greater you. Selfless self-care. Ain't this something? So even in that, I'm getting my nails done, it ain't because you are vain. No, that black woman who understands that she's an African woman, understand that there's a difference. Because you got women who don't understand who they are. They still do it, but they do it for the wrong reasons. Vanity. But when you do it because you know that you are a reflection to every black woman and you have to uphold your crown. Every sister says that she's got a crown, and no, they don't. It's waiting for you, but you haven't worn it yet. But those who are wearing it, they have embraced that selfless self-care. I walk in the experience where women, other women and children, my children, that means kids all over, see me. They will feel a certain way. When my counterpart, that black man, and the black male, and that black boy, we have levels. When they see me, healing happens. They embrace the beauty in which God is within me, and there's a spark of change that goes. She becomes the medicine in this journey to the divine feminine. And it doesn't happen all at once. It happens in stages, because even when you get there, even when you get to that point where you're studying and you become a priestess, some sisters that's their journey, and some sisters that's they're not. But when they get to that point where they are vibrating at all angles at a high frequency of being in tune with who God called them to be, not who the world made them to be, things change. And she becomes completely selfless in her journey and her experience. And that is the experience of the divine feminine. I hope that in this space, I was able, and I read, I study, I take notes. I can always add to this or take this away, but I'm hoping you understand that you walk, sisters begin to walk in, and I see you walk into the divine definition as given to you by the Creator. There is no better experience to live. And until we get to that point, we're still surviving. But in this place where she develops the art of selfless self-care, where her beauty is connected and how she expresses the beauty of who she is, it is experience that I am only a reflection of you. It's not about an ego, not about a vanity. It's about none of that. It's 100% about she's healing the world around her from inside out. That's the medicine of a divine black feminine. Ain't that something? Next week we'll have a sister who's a priestess who makes the journey and helps individuals experience the journey. So we'll talk about it from a priestess level and what she sees in terms of how women are going right and how women are going wrong. And so we had a long conversation. Well, we started the conversation. I wanted to stop because I wanted to be organic. I didn't want to relive the thoughts and conversations. But I'm looking forward to that conversation and the experience of giving it to you. And so with that being said, I hope that y'all have enjoyed this. We have one more session where we'll have a sister speaking from the position of being a priestess. With that being said, let the African in you rise. And hopefully you are completely experiencing what it is to have that selfless self-care. And those sisters who are struggling with it, and I had a friend of mine was talking to us online, and I said, there's some changes that you need to make, right? And she was clear, yeah. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's not easy to make those changes. Sometimes you want to fit in with the world. But if you love the world in any shape, form, or fashion, God or your ancestors are not there with you. You're there by yourself with your trauma. Think about that. Other than that, that divine feminine, one powerful journey develops one powerful, powerful woman. One love.
If I had to choose, I would still choose you. After all the things society has told you to imbue, somehow your light has been able to shine through. The power resides within divine feminine, not only in women, but also in men. The balance obtained here is what will light our feet on the path to come. It is the strength that we keep near that will allow our spirits to hold steadfast and not succumb. The energy of love, of life, of all creation. The spark of light in the womb that combusts, evolves into a nation. The divine feminine, the power held so dearly. The divine feminine, the scope that allows us to see one humanity again so clearly. The power that we hold, the sparkling in our eyes, how our self and inner beauty unfold in the truth seen beyond the disguise. Oh, you are divine, Mother Nature, Mother Earth. I am thankful daily for all of the miracles that you birth. When I sit and I truly ponder the things that I'm grateful for, my heart does not wander. Because I know truth, and truth is love. If you live through understanding of self, then nothing comes above. When you understand your oneness with nature and all else that surrounds, you stop being disturbed by all of the external sounds. You realize the silence within yourself. You understand the meaning of true wealth. It is your health. It is your health. Everything you intake then becomes part of your body, your temple, your physical self. Understand that the keys to your kingdom again lie within yourself. With all of this, we must remember, there is nothing here with which we are not members. We must honor and respect the environment as ourselves, because we are directly impacted by everything we output, and that equates to our health. Kindness, love, grace. Allow heaven to become embodiment, much more than a place. And when things seem difficult, you are able to face, because through your divine feminine, you will recall your righteousness that cannot be replaced.